Historians often write works on their own, books or journal articles, but sometimes a group of historians will come together to write a single book on a common topic or theme, and this is called an edited collection. Not every book that you use is going to be a monograph or a book with a single author. Sometimes you'll find a book that is what we refer to as an edited collection. Now there's lots of different terms that people use to refer to this. They might say a book chapter or a chapter in an edited collection or an essay in an edited collection, but they all mean the same thing. So how do we know if this is a monograph or an edited collection? Well, there's a couple of really easy ways to figure that out. First, it will usually say edited by, so that gives you the first indication it's an edited collection. The other thing you need to make sure you see, though, is that it's not just has an editor and a single author. It needs to have multiple authors to be an edited collection. So if we move ahead to the table of contents, we see that there are multiple chapters, and each individual chapter not only has its own name, but has a different author as well. So in that way, it looks very much like the table of contents for a journal as opposed to a book. If it has these two things, a set of chapters each with their own author, and an editor for the whole book, then you know it is most likely an edited collection, and you cite it in a slightly different way. So if it's an edited collection, which is sort of partway between a journal and a book, you have a citation that's going to look partway between a journal and a book. So where do we begin? Well, I always advise that we start with the footnotes rather than the bibliography, because you don't do your bibliography until you're completely sure all the different things that you've cited in that actual essay. So let's start with the footnote. So rather than start with the book as a whole, we, like when we do a journal article, are going to start with the specific essay that we're most interested in, that particular citation is about. So if we look at this essay, we can see that there are about 16 different essays we can choose from. And we're going to start with this one, number 5, Berlin and Montesquieu by Karen O'Brien. So, like all of our other footnote entries, we begin with the author's name, the author of the specific essay, first name first, just like a sentence. Karen O'Brien, or O'Brien, I'm not sure which. And once we have the author's name, we then do the title. And again, is the title of the specific essay, not the book as a whole. And because it's a part of a larger publication, rather than a publication on its own, we put it into speech or quotation marks rather than italics. So, continuing our footnote sentence, comma, speech mark, Berlin and Montesquieu. So, now that we have the name of the entire chapter, we have to put in a comma. And because it's a sentence like in English grammar, we would put the comma before the quotation mark. Now at this point, it looks very much like a journal article, but this is where it is slightly different. Rather than just move on straight to the name of the publication, we have to indicate that it's an edited collection by adding one small word, in. It's a very small thing, but it makes it really clear to your reader that this is an edited collection, not a journal. It's a single volume, a single publication, rather than a periodical. But like a normal book, we turn to the title page to get our bibliographic information. So what do we need? Well, first we need the title of the book, and we style that like any other book title in italics. Isaiah, Berlin, and the Enlightenment. Now, once we do this, we need to give a little bit of extra information. We need to give the name of the editors. Now we do this for two reasons. One, like when we added the word in, it's just to indicate this is an edited collection. Second, it's to give credit. The editors do a really hard job putting all of these books together, all of these chapters together, so it's important we give them some credit as to the final product. It also just helps us find it on a bookshelf. If we are looking for Karen O'Brien's name, we're not going to find that in the library catalog record. We're able to find it under Brocklitz and Robertson, which is what the catalog lists the book as being under. So there's lots of good reasons to include this information in your footnote, not just your bibliography. So how do we do that? Well, first of all, we end our italics, put in our comma, and then we put the abbreviation for editor, ED full stop. Now, if there's a single editor, that's what we would do. But this one has two editors, so we actually put EDS, editors, full stop. Now, after that, we put the name of the editors as they appear in the book. So usually this is alphabetical order, but if it's not, you should still put it in the way it's listed in the book. Lawrence Brocklitz and Richie Robertson. Now, once we have these two editors, we move on, like a normal book, to the publication information. So space, put in our publishing house brackets, and we need to put in our city, our publisher, and our year. Now, if we look at this particular title page, we have the publisher, which is Oxford University Press, but we don't have any other information. Now, you and I probably can assume that Oxford University Press is published in Oxford in the United Kingdom, but that doesn't really help us find the year. So we need to turn the title page over and go to the copyright page. Now, the copyright page does confirm to us that it is published in Oxford in the United Kingdom. And if we go down, we can see that the date is 2016. Now, there are no other dates listed, so we don't have to worry about multiple copyright dates. We can just use the 2016 that's listed here. So let's go back to our title page and type in Oxford, colon, to separate the place from the publisher, Oxford University Press, and then a comma for the year, 2016. If you're unsure or you wonder if perhaps the copyright date is different from the actual version you have, if you don't necessarily have a first edition of the book, you can also look at the catalog information that you received the book from, so the library or maybe the bookshop, and that will give you the specific printing year of that particular book. Now, once you're done, you need to insert the page numbers, the actual pages you looked at. So in the case of this particular chapter, which began on page 79, let's say we wanted to cite page 85. So now the question becomes, how do we indicate the page number? Is it like a book with a comma, or is it like a journal with a colon? Well, even though it is part of a book, it is still a book. It is still a single publication, so we do use the comma before we start talking about the page number. So in this case, page 85 and a full stop. If you want to indicate several pages that are not next to each other, you do that with a comma, page 85 and 87. And if you want to indicate all the pages, so a long quotation or information that went over several pages, you use an in dash, not a hyphen or a minus symbol, but using the left alt and your number pad on the right, 0150, you enter the in dash, that slightly longer dash. If you don't have a full-size keyboard, maybe on a laptop, you can also use the insert function in Word, or you can look online for in dash, en dash, and copy and paste it into your essays. So there we go. We have the name of the author and their particular essay, the name of the book or edited collection and its editors, the publication information, and the specific pages you've cited. Now we need to create the bibliography entry. Now this is slightly more confusing than either a book or a journal article. So pay attention to the differences and see if you can think of ways to remember how this differs from the other two. Like all bibliography entries, we want to put the first author, the primary author of the chapter, as the author of the entry. And we want to put their last name first because it's going to be put in alphabetical order by last names. So, Obreen, Karen, and then a full stop. Remember, all bibliography entries are like little paragraphs rather than sentences. So each section ends in its own full stop. The next section is Berlin and Montesquieu. And like in English grammar, we put the full stop before the quotation marks. Now here's where it gets a little bit confusing. We do still have in Isaiah Berlin and the Enlightenment, but you'll see that in is capitalized because it's the start of a new sentence. We also sort of change how we talk about the editors. Rather than abbreviate it the way we did for a footnote, we actually spell out edited by. Why do we do that? Well, it's pretty much just because it creates a fuller sentence. When we had it as an abbreviation in the footnote, we wanted to get as much information as we could in as small a space as possible. The bibliography, we've got a little bit more room. We can stretch out a little bit. You can type the whole edited by. So we have Lawrence Brockles and Richie Robertson. Now we have a little bit of information that is similar to a journal article rather than a book. We need to put the entire page range of that essay, not the pages you specifically cited, but the whole essay. And that's so that you can find it within the book. Now it kind of seems tempting just to write chapter 5, but that's not the most useful thing. It's really useful to have the actual page numbers. And that's for a couple of reasons. One, it's better to find it by page numbers, especially if they've used different chapter markers. Maybe they've not used numerical chapters, maybe they've used letters, or they've not used chapters at all. The other reason is it gives you an indication of how long that work is. Is it a 2-page encyclopedia entry, or is it a long essay that's really discussing the work? It just gives these little extra clues about the type of information you're getting. So if we look at the table of contents, we see that Chapter 5 starts on page 79 and ends on page 89. And again, we want to use that in dash, Alt 0150, rather than a hyphen. Now to separate the edited by from the page numbers, you put in those commas, but you don't need to put a P or a page or anything like that, just the numbers of the pages themselves. And after that, we hit a full stop. So in Isaiah Berlin and the Enlightenment, edited by Lawrence Brockles and Richie Robertson on pages 79 through 89, that is a complete sentence about where this article exists. And the last thing you do is just like a normal book, Oxford University Press, 2016, full stop. And again, you put the page numbers in the information about where in the book it is, not the publication itself, because as an entire publication, it doesn't need its own page range. So there we go. We have a complete footnote and bibliography for your essay. Just remember, if you cite multiple different essays in a single essay, each individual one needs their own entry. Do not just cite the book as though it's a monograph. Give credit where credit is due.